I stared at the number on the check again. $4,847,000. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set it down on the kitchen counter. I picked it up. Read it again. $4,847,000. The settlement had finally come through. 3 years after David died on that operating table. 3 years of depositions, medical experts, lawyers arguing over what went wrong during what should have been a routine surgery. 3 years of living in our too-quiet house in Tacoma, wondering if any amount of money could ever make up for losing my husband of 41 years. It couldn't, of course, but this money meant I wouldn't have to worry anymore. At 63, with my part-time job at the library barely covering the mortgage David and I took out to help Melissa through grad school, I'd been terrified about my future. Now I could breathe again. I needed to tell someone. I needed to share this moment. My daughter Sarah lived in Boston with her family, but Melissa, my niece, was right here in Seattle, just 20 minutes away. Sweet Melissa, who'd moved to Washington specifically to be closer to me after David died, who called every Sunday, who brought me groceries when the weather was bad, who sat with me through those terrible first months when I couldn't stop crying. She was the daughter David and I never had, though I loved Sarah fiercely. Melissa was different. She needed me, in a way Sarah, with her stable marriage and successful career, never had. Melissa had always struggled a bit, bouncing between jobs, relationships that never quite worked out. At 29, she was finally getting her life together. She'd been dating someone for 6 months, was working as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup. Things were looking up for her. I wanted to celebrate with her. I picked up my phone. "Aunt Diane?" Her voice was bright when she answered. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's wonderful, honey. Are you busy? Can you come over? I have some news." There was a pause. "Like, now? If you can. It's important. Good important." Sure. I'm actually at Jake's apartment, but yeah, give me 40 minutes." Jake. The boyfriend I'd met exactly once, briefly, when Melissa had stopped by with coffee 3 weeks ago. Tall, confident, worked in tech sales. Melissa had been glowing that day. "That's perfect. I'll put on some coffee." I hung up and looked at the check again. My attorney, Ruth, had explained everything yesterday. The insurance company had dragged it out as long as they could, but the malpractice was clear. Dr. Patterson had missed obvious warning signs, had been working a double shift, had made mistakes that cost David his life. Ruth had asked what I planned to do with the money. I hadn't had an answer then, but driving home, I'd started thinking. Sarah was fine. She and Tom made good money, but Melissa had mentioned wanting to go back to school for her MBA. Maybe I could help with that. And there was the animal shelter David and I had always donated to. The food bank. I could do real good with this. I made coffee and waited, my mind spinning with possibilities. Melissa arrived 38 minutes later. I heard her car in the driveway, heard her footsteps on the porch. I went to open the door, smiling so wide my face hurt. She looked beautiful, in jeans and a sweater, her dark hair pulled back. But there was something in her face, some tension I couldn't quite read. "Aunt Diane, hey!" She hugged me, but it was quick. Distracted. Come in, come in." I ushered her inside. "Coffee?" "Sure, yeah." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where David and I had eaten breakfast every morning for 18 years, the same table where Melissa had done her homework when she visited as a teenager. "So, what's the big news?" She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. I couldn't help it. I started crying, happy tears, overwhelmed tears. The settlement came through, from David's case. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God, Aunt Diane, that's amazing. You must be so relieved." "I am. I really am." I wiped my eyes. "It's a lot of money, Melissa, a lot. $4.8 million. I watched her face carefully, watched the shock register, her mouth opened slightly. "That's incredible. I mean, nothing can bring Uncle David back, but at least you're taken care of now. More than taken care of." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "And I've been thinking. You mentioned wanting to go back to school. I'd like to help with that. Pay for your MBA program. Whatever you need." Something flickered across her face, too quick for me to catch. "Aunt Diane, I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering. You've been so good to me. I want to help. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. That's so generous. Let me think about it. I need to use your bathroom real quick. Of course, honey. She stood up and walked down the hall. I heard the bathroom door close. Her phone buzzed again on the table. The screen lit up. A text from Jake. Did she tell you yet? I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have. But something in my chest tightened. I glanced toward the hallway, heard the water running. Another text came through. Babe, we need to move on this fast before she does something stupid with the money. My breath caught. I picked up the phone. My hands were trembling again, but different this time. Her generation doesn't understand investing. She'll probably give half of it to charity or something. I heard Melissa's voice, muffled through the bathroom door. She was on her phone, on a call. Yeah, I'm here now, she was saying. She told me, $4.8 million. I know, baby. I can't believe it either. I couldn't move. I sat frozen, her phone in my hand, her voice drifting down the hallway. She already offered to pay for my MBA. That's good, right? Gets her used to the idea of helping me financially. No, she didn't mention a will or anything. Jake, she's 63 and just got almost $5 million. She's not exactly thinking clearly right now. The water was still running, cover noise. What we talked about. I'll tell her I want to help her manage it, that it's a lot of money and she shouldn't make any quick decisions. She trusts me, she'll listen. Then we get her to put me on her accounts, maybe make me POA while we're at it. She's been really forgetful lately, keeps losing her keys, forgot our dinner last month. We can work with that. I felt like I'd been punched, like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. And when the time comes, everything passes to me. She doesn't have a will updated since Uncle David died. I checked. As next of kin after Sarah, I'd get a chunk anyway, but this way it's cleaner. Are you crazy? I'm not waiting until she dies naturally, but we can make sure she makes me beneficiary on everything. Then who knows what happens? Old people have accidents, take too much medication, fall downstairs. The water shut off. I set the phone down exactly where it had been. My vision was blurry. I gripped the edge of the table. Melissa came back down the hall, smiling. Sat down across from me. Sorry about that. So you were saying about the MBA program? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Tried to find the girl who'd cried at David's funeral. The girl who used to bake cookies with me at Christmas. The girl I'd helped move into 3 different apartments, who'd called me crying about boyfriends, who I'd thought of as my own daughter. Are you okay, Aunt Diane? You look pale. I'm fine. My voice sounded far away. Just a little overwhelmed with everything. That's totally understandable. Listen, I've actually been thinking about what you said, about the money, and I want to help you. This is a huge amount, and you shouldn't make any decisions quickly. There are investment strategies, tax implications, all sorts of things to consider. You think so? Definitely. Jake works in finance. He knows about this stuff. Maybe the 3 of us could sit down together, make a plan. You don't want to just let it sit in a checking account. No, I suppose not. And Aunt Diane, I've noticed you've been a little forgetful lately. Nothing serious, but you forgot about our dinner 2 weeks ago, and last month you mentioned losing your car keys twice. Maybe it would help to have someone you trust helping manage things? I could be on your accounts, just to help. Make sure bills are paid, that kind of thing. She smiled. It was a warm smile. Concerned, loving. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and shake her and ask her who she was, because she couldn't be my Melissa. My Melissa wouldn't do this. Let me think about it, I said slowly. Of course, there's no rush. She checked her phone. I should probably get going. Jake and I have dinner plans. But I'm so happy for you, Aunt Diane. You deserve this. She hugged me at the door. I stood stiff, my arms barely rising to return it. When she left, I locked the door behind her. I walked back to the kitchen. I sat down at the table and I shook. Just shook, for I don't know how long. Then I picked up my phone and called Ruth. Ruth, it's Diane Thornton. I need to see you tomorrow morning. First thing. No, it can't wait. I need to draw up a will, and I need to talk to you about protecting assets. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Melissa over the past 6 months. Every visit, every phone call. Looking for signs, looking for when this had started. The forgotten dinner. I hadn't forgotten. I'd had the flu and had called her to cancel. She'd said she understood. The keys. I'd lost them once, found them in my coat pocket an hour later, once. She was building a narrative. Planting seeds. Aunt Diane's getting forgetful. Aunt Diane needs help. And when she had control, when she was on my accounts, named in my will, when I'd made her power of attorney, then what? Old people have accidents. I got up at 3 a.m. and threw up. At 9 a.m., I was in Ruth's office. I told her everything. Played the voicemail I'd recorded of Melissa's phone conversation after I'd thought to use my own phone to capture it. Ruth's face went hard. "This is elder financial abuse, Diane. We could involve the police." "No." I surprised myself with how firm my voice was. "Not yet. I need to handle this my way first, but I need to protect myself. Protect the money." We worked for 3 hours. Ruth drew up an ironclad will. Everything would go into a trust. Sarah would receive a third. The remaining 2/3 would be divided between the animal shelter, the food bank, and a scholarship fund in David's name at the University of Washington Medical School to help train doctors who wouldn't make the mistakes that killed him. Melissa's name appeared nowhere in the document. We set up the trust that afternoon, transferred the funds, created a paper trail that would make it impossible for anyone to contest or manipulate. Ruth also helped me draft a power of attorney naming Sarah, and only Sarah, as my representative if I ever became incapacitated. We backdated it to a month after David's death. "What are you going to do?" Ruth asked, as I was leaving. "I'm going to talk to her. I need to understand why." "Diane, she threatened your life. She's 29 years old and being manipulated by a man I met once. I raised that girl summers and holidays. I changed her diapers. I taught her to ride a bike. Before I write her off completely, I need to look her in the eye and ask her why." I called Melissa that evening. "Can you and Jake come over for dinner tomorrow? I want to discuss the financial planning you mentioned." "Oh, Aunt Diane, that's great." "Yes, absolutely. What time?" 6 o'clock. I spent the next day cooking David's pot roast, the one Melissa had always loved. I set the table with our good dishes. I even bought a nice bottle of wine. At 5:58, they arrived. Jake was taller than I remembered, good-looking in that generic way, with perfect hair and an expensive watch. He shook my hand too firmly, smiled too widely. "Mrs. Thornton, it's so good to see you again. Melissa's told me so much about you." "I'm sure she has." We sat down to dinner. They talked about their ideas for investing. Jake had a friend who was a financial advisor. They could set up a meeting. Nothing had to be decided today, but it was important to start thinking about these things. I let them talk. I nodded. I asked questions. Halfway through dinner, I set down my fork. "I want to ask you both something," I said. "Jake, what do you think about elder financial abuse?" He blinked. "I'm sorry?" "It's when someone takes advantage of an older person's trust to steal their money or assets, sometimes through manipulation. Sometimes by convincing the person they're not capable of managing their own affairs." Melissa had gone very still. "Aunt Diane, where is this coming from? I'm just curious about your thoughts." "Jake, in your professional opinion, what should someone do if they suspect they're being targeted for such abuse?" "Well, I suppose they should contact the authorities. Protect their assets. But Mrs. Thornton, I'm not sure why you're asking. Because 3 days ago, I overheard a phone conversation. A young woman telling her boyfriend that she planned to convince her elderly aunt, who had just received a settlement, that the aunt was forgetful and needed help managing her finances. That once she had control of the accounts and was named in the will, well, old people have accidents. Those were the words used. Old people have accidents. The color drained from Melissa's face. The young woman also texted her boyfriend about needing to move fast before her aunt did something stupid with the money, like give it to charity. "Aunt Diane, I can explain." "Can you?" I looked at her. My voice was steady now, calm, because I've been trying to explain it to myself for 3 days, and I can't. I can't understand how the girl I helped raise, who I loved like my own daughter, could plan to steal from me, could talk about me having an accident. Jake stood up. "We should go. Sit down, Jake. I didn't raise my voice. You're in this too. Those texts came from your phone. He sat. Melissa was crying now. It wasn't serious. We were just talking. I would never actually hurt you. Just steal from me? Just manipulate me into thinking I was losing my mind? Just have me sign over power of attorney so you could control my life? I'm broke, okay? Her voice cracked. I'm 30 years old and I have nothing. Student loans up to my neck. Jake and I want to buy a house, start a life, and I'm working a stupid job that barely pays rent. You have almost $5 million. Uncle David was like a father to me. Don't I deserve something from that? David left you $5,000 in his will. It's sitting in an account waiting for you. You never asked about it, so I assumed you didn't need it. She stared at me. As for deserving something, yes, Melissa, you did. Past tense. Before I heard you planning my accident. I didn't mean it like that. I was angry. I was just venting. You plotted. You strategized. You lied about me being forgetful to build a legal case for incompetence. How long have you been planning this? Since David died? Since before? She didn't answer. I looked at Jake. And you? What's your stake in this? Is Melissa just your ticket to an easy payday? It's not like that, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Get out of my house. Aunt Diane, please. I've already moved the money into an irrevocable trust. You're not in my will. You never were, actually. Sarah is my heir, but I'd planned to help you, to pay for your education, to be there for you like I always have been. That's over now. Melissa was sobbing. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Jake, I got caught up in. Don't blame him entirely. You're an adult. You made choices. They left. I watched from the window as Jake's car pulled away. I cleaned up dinner alone, washed the dishes, put away the leftovers. Then I sat in David's chair and cried. The next week, I called my daughter Sarah, told her everything. She was horrified, wanted to fly out immediately. Mom, you need to cut her off completely. What she did is unforgivable. Maybe? Mom, she talked about you having an accident. I know. I looked out the window at the garden David and I had planted together. But Sarah, she's sick. Something's wrong with her, something I didn't see. And just cutting her off, leaving her with nothing but Jake and her bad decisions, that doesn't sit right with me. You can't save everyone, Mom. I know, but I can try. I called Ruth again. I want to set up something for Melissa. Not money she can access now, something that requires real work. We established a fund, $100,000, held in trust. Melissa could access it only under specific conditions. She had to complete therapy, minimum 6 months. She had to end her relationship with Jake, verified by 3 months of no contact. She had to get and maintain employment for 1 full year. She had to write me a letter, not apologizing, but explaining what had led her to that phone conversation. Really explaining, with insight and understanding. If she met all those conditions, the money was hers, with one stipulation. Half had to go to paying off her student loans. The rest was for her education or a down payment on a home. But not for a vacation, not for a car, not for anything frivolous. If she didn't meet the conditions within 5 years, the money went to charity. I sent her a letter explaining the offer. I didn't hear back for 3 weeks. Then, late one evening, my phone rang. Melissa, I don't deserve this, she said. Her voice was small. No, you probably don't. Why are you doing it? Because I loved you before all this happened. That doesn't just disappear, even when it should. And because your Uncle David would have wanted me to give you a chance to be better. I broke up with Jake yesterday. When the money didn't happen, he started talking about maybe we should take a break, so I ended it. You were right about him. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was quiet for a moment. I found a therapist. I have my first appointment next week. I don't know if I can do all the things you're asking. Then don't do them for the money. Do them because you need to. Do them because the person you were becoming wasn't someone you'd want to be. I don't know how to come back from this. How to look at myself. One day at a time, sweetheart. That's all any of us can do. We didn't talk much after that, just brief texts now and then. She'd send updates on her therapy. She got a new job, better pay, at a marketing firm. She was making friends. 8 months later, she asked if she could visit. Not about the money, she said. Just to talk. I said yes. She sat at my kitchen table, older somehow, different. I wrote you the letter, she said, sliding an envelope across the table. Not because of the conditions. I wrote it for me. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. I opened it. 10 pages, handwritten, about her father leaving when she was young, about never feeling good enough, about watching Sarah succeed while she struggled, about Jake making her feel special, important, and how that had twisted into something toxic, about grief over David, and anger that his death had left me rich while she was drowning, about jealousy and shame and fear. I'm not making excuses, she said. What I did was evil, truly evil. There's no justification, but I wanted you to understand where my head was, how I let myself become that person. Have you figured out how to not be that person? I'm trying. Every day. She met my eyes. I don't want your money, Aunt Diane. I don't want the fund. I want to do this on my own. Are you sure? I need to. I need to prove to myself that I can. I reached across and took her hand. Then I'm proud of you. She started crying. How can you even look at me? Because I'm looking at someone who's trying to do better. That's all any of us can do. That was 2 years ago. Melissa did rebuild her life, paid off her loans slowly, through hard work, got promoted twice, met someone new, someone kind, took it slow. We have coffee once a month now. The conversations are still sometimes awkward. The trust is broken and may never fully heal. But we're trying. The $100,000 fund is still there. I changed the conditions last year. If Melissa stays clean of financial manipulation for 5 years total, the money is hers. Not for her needs, but to pay forward. To help someone else the way I tried to help her. She doesn't know about the change yet. Maybe I'll tell her when the time comes. Maybe I won't. I've learned that love isn't always soft. Sometimes it's boundaries. Sometimes it's consequences. Sometimes it's holding people accountable while still holding space for them to grow. David would have liked that. He always said I was too soft with Melissa, that I let her get away with too much. He was right. My softness enabled her worst instincts. But he also would have said to give her a chance to do better, to not give up on family entirely. I think about that phone conversation sometimes. Old people have accidents. I think about how close I came to trusting someone who'd imagined my death. But I also think about the girl who showed up at my door 8 months later, scared and ashamed and trying. I think about growth and second chances and the complicated reality that people can be both the worst version of themselves and something better. I used the settlement money the way I'd planned, mostly. The scholarship fund has helped 12 medical students so far. The animal shelter built a new wing. The food bank expanded its services. Sarah and her family are comfortable. I kept enough to live well, to travel a little, to not worry. And I kept enough to give Melissa one more chance. Not because she earned it, but because love, real love, the kind David and I had for each other and for the people we cared about, isn't transactional. It's messy and complicated and sometimes really hard. Would I do it differently if I could go back? I don't know. Some days I think I should have called the police, should have cut her off entirely. Some days I think I was a fool for giving her any kind of opening to hurt me again. But most days, I think I did what I could live with. And at 65, living with your choices is all that really matters. Last Christmas, Melissa brought her boyfriend, Marcus, to meet me. He's a teacher. They're taking things slow. She's happy, in a way that seems real and earned. When they were leaving, she hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me when you should have. Thank you for not giving up on yourself." I closed the door and went back to David's chair, looked at his picture on the mantel. "I hope I did right," I told him. "I hope she's really changing." And then I raised my glass of wine to the quiet house, to hard lessons learned, to broken trust slowly mending, to the complexity of love, to second chances, and to the man who taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it might mean hoping for better.